G'day, mates. Ever get mad at a piece of toast? No? Just me then. Picture this. It's a fine Sunday morning. The birds are singing, the sun is shining, and I'm feeling like $1,000,000. I stroll into the kitchen, ready to whip up a cracking breakfast. The eggs are sizzling, the bacon is popping, and I reach for the final piece to complete my culinary masterpiece, the toast. Now, I've always had a particular fondness for toast. It's a humble food, unassuming, yet an essential part of any classic breakfast. So, I pop a slice into the toaster, set it to my usual level of toasty perfection, and turn my attention back to the sizzling symphony on the stove. Imagine my shock, my horror, when I turn back to the toaster, and instead of a golden, crispy slice of heaven, I'm met with a blackened, burnt piece of betrayal. The toast, my toast, had forsaken me. The breakfast, the morning, the day, all ruined by this one, seemingly insignificant oversight. I raged at the toaster, at the toast, at the universe that had conspired to overcook my breakfast. I was livid, fuming, irate. But then in the midst of my toast-induced tirade, I had a moment of clarity. Was I really this mad at a piece of toast? Was this where I was channeling my anger, my outrage? And that, my friends, was the birth of the concept of misplaced outrage. It's those moments when we find ourselves fuming at the most trivial things, when our anger is so out of proportion to the situation at hand that it becomes, well, outrageous. And it's not just me. We've all been there, haven't we? Whether it's the missing sock that sends us into a tailspin, or the overcooked meal that triggers a meltdown, it's these moments of misplaced outrage that make us human, that make us laugh, and let's be honest, make for some cracking good stories. So, join me on this journey, this exploration, this downright hilarious investigation into the world of misplaced outrage. Well, that's the first taste of the buffet of misplaced outrage. Get ready for a full course meal. And if you're already full, go take a shit and make room for more. Now let's dive into the world of laundry, where the Bermuda Triangle of socks exists. Picture this, a cold morning. I was about to put on my favorite pair of socks, knitted by my dead mum, a perfect blend of comfort and warmth. But alas, one of them was missing. What the fuck? Where is my other sock? It was like a punch in the gut, a stab in the back, a betrayal of the highest order. I mean, who does that? Just up and leaves without a trace or a note, ghosted by my own sock. There I was, one foot shivering in the cold, the other snug and warm. I felt like a pirate with a wooden leg, only it was a bare foot, and I was in my living room, not on a ship. But you get the point. I was in the throes of a full-blown sock crisis. You could say I was socked, but not as much as I wanted to be. The search began. I turned the house upside down, inside out. The washing machine, the dryer, under the bed, behind the couch, even the refrigerator. You'd be surprised where a rogue sock can hide. But the sock was gone. Vanished. Disappeared into the thin air. Kinda like my father when I was young. I felt like a detective on a cold case, only I wasn't looking for my father. I was looking for a sock. I guess they could both hold semen. The more I searched, the more elusive the sock became. It was like chasing a ghost, a phantom sock, or pretty much like chasing my dad. The frustration mounted. The anger bubbled up. I was a man scorned by a sock, no less. I mean, the audacity. I had given it a home, a purpose, a foot to warm, and this is how it repays me. By deserting me when I needed it the most, just like my father. The sock had become a traitor, a defector, a deserter. Again, just like Daddy. It had left me barefoot and betrayed. The sock saga had become a saga of lost trust, a saga of misplaced loyalty. I mean, if you can't trust your sock, who can you trust? Not your dad. And that, my friends, was the epic saga of the missing sock. May we meet in a better world, my foot's lost companion. Ever had a meal that was so overcooked you'd swear it was trying to achieve a dark tan? I mean, seriously, have you ever had a steak that was so tough you'd think it was auditioning for a role in an action movie? I remember one time I had a chicken that was so dry, I could have used it as firewood. Now, I'm no Gordon Ramsay, but I do like my food to have a bit of life left in it. But this meal, oh boy, this meal had decided to stay in the oven's warm glow for so long, it had become a culinary version of a sunbather refusing to leave the beach. In other words, it was getting cancer. It was crispy, it was crunchy, it was, well, let's just say, malignant. It was no longer food. It was a science experiment that had gone horribly wrong. I remember looking at this overcooked monstrosity, this blackened lump of what was once a promising dinner, and I could feel the anger rising. I was about to have a meltdown over a meal. Can you believe that? A grown man ready to blow his head off over a piece of overcooked chicken. But the truth is, we've all been there, haven't we? We've all had that moment when the smallest thing, like an overcooked meal, can make us lose your fucking mind. It's funny when you think about it. We're living in a world full of real problems, and here I was, about to have a full-on hill myself moment over a piece of poultry that had spent a little too much time in the oven. And the worst part was that I was home alone. There was no one there to witness my outrage, no one there to share in my culinary disappointment. Actually, thinking back, that was a good thing. We don't need witnesses. But I did learn something that day. I learned that sometimes you just have to laugh at the little things. You have to take life's overcooked meals and turn them into a source of amusement. Because if you can't find the humor in life's minor mishaps, then you're missing out on a lot of laughs. And if you don't laugh, you're dying. So remember, folks, a well-cooked meal is a joy. An overcooked one, well, that's a whole different recipe for disaster. In the 21st century, there's nothing more terrifying than the spinning wheel of a loading page. You know, I was once a carefree bloke until I met my nemesis. It's not a ferocious beast or a villainous mastermind. No, it's my Wi-Fi. It's like this lazy employee who's always smoking in his car when you need him the most. It was a fine evening. I was all settled in, ready to watch the season finale of my favorite show. The suspense was building. My popcorn was perfectly popped. But just as the opening credits began to roll, the loading wheel appeared. Now, this wasn't your everyday run-of-the-mill loading wheel. This was the spinning wheel of doom, the harbinger of buffering. It was the kind of wheel that looks at you with a smug face and says, "Not today, mate. I mean, I pay this Wi-Fi for one job only, to deliver the internet to me, swiftly and smoothly." But no, it decides to take a leisurely stroll instead of a sprint. It's like hiring a racehorse and getting a sloth. In my rage, I had half a mind to march up to the router, shake it by its antennas and demand, "Why the fuck are you like this? Do you enjoy tormenting me?" But of course, I didn't. I just sat there like a goon staring at the screen, my popcorn going cold, my suspense turning into frustration. I even tried the age-old trick, the one that has saved many a doomed internet session. I turned it off and on again. But alas, my Wi-Fi, that motherfucker, just laughed in the face of my desperation. And the worst part? When the Wi-Fi finally decided to grace me with its presence, I'm not even in the mood anymore. Turns out, the internet is not just full of information, but also boner killers. So, next time your Wi-Fi decides to take a nap, remember, it could be worse. You could be dealing with a runaway sock. Or maybe you don't have a dad. Maybe he left because of you. IDK. As we wrap up our journey through the land of misplaced outrage, let's take a moment to remember the real victims here. The innocent sock, forever separated from its mate, banished to the shadowy corners of the washing machine. The toast, burnt to a crisp, not because it wanted to be, but because you were too busy scrolling through Pornhub. The meal, diligently prepared only to be scorned for its extra minute in the microwave. And let's not forget the Wi-Fi, subjected to a tirade of colorful language for its momentary lapse in speed. These are the unsung heroes, the silent sufferers of our misplaced outrage. So let's raise a glass to them. Here's to the socks, the toasts, the meals, and the Wi-Fi connections of the world. May they continue to endure our irrational anger with grace and resilience. But folks, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The world is full of real problems. Global warming, political unrest, economic inequality. Now, these are issues worth getting your knickers in a twist over. Not a sock gone rogue or a slightly overdone chicken. Not even a loser parent. So why do we do it? Why do we get so riled up over these little inconveniences? Well, it's simple. It's because they're safe. Because it's easier to shout at a sock than it is to tackle the real issues. Because it's easier to blame the toast than to accept responsibility for your own feelings and emotions. Because let's face it, we're all a little bit ridiculous. We're humans. So the next time you find yourself boiling over a burnt toast, a missing sock, an overcooked meal, or a slow Wi-Fi connection, remember, At least we don't live in China or Canada or Russia or the Middle East or the Antarctic or Europe or Africa or anywhere else. Now that would be something to be outraged about.